Hello, it's Father Rich coming to you for our next segment of how the church has changed the world. I'm here in my office. We kind of continuing a theme that had started a couple videos ago in the Polish heritage and impact this had not just on Europe, but in the church in Europe, but certainly our own country. And it's fascinating to show the generational connections. I'm actually here because I mentioned that my holy card for ordination was Our Lady of Częstochowa, the Polish Queen of Poland, and so that was a gift I got for my ordination. But the name of this essay is "There Was a Soldier Sent from God," and it actually starts with a soldier in the Civil War who had come from Poland and was fighting for the North. And it talked about how he committed himself to America because they had welcomed him and given him a home and a country when he had been rejected by Russia, who was in control, and kind of oppressing Poland in the 1700s, even in the 1800s. And because at that time, Poland had been eliminated in the early 1800s as a country, so they were under Russian influence. And so this young man's name was John Sobieski. And his father was killed because he tried to start a revolution in Poland, and he was imprisoned and eventually executed. And so he and his mother left for America. His mom died soon after that, and he settled in America by himself. But so he would fight for the North, and he was a great grandson of one of the other focal points in this essay, which is John Sobieski, the king of Poland in the 1600s. Vienna was under siege from the Muslim Turks, and again, this was a little later than, remember, on the western front of Europe, we had the Battle of Lepanto just yesterday, and the European countries and Christian countries were able to fight off the naval battle and then therefore pretty much end the Muslim threat from the west. Well, now Vienna was under siege and looked like they were going to be defeated. It was September 12th. The Feast of the Holy Name of Mary, which has just been reinstituted in the Catholic calendar in the last 20 years or so. And on that day, they were, if they didn't get any help from the rest of Europe, Austria was looking for help from any one of the Christian countries. They were getting ready to surrender that day. And King John Sobieski showed up with the Polish. They were way outnumbered, but he was a very pious man, similar to John of Austria, who led the Battle of Lepanto, and called all the Catholics to prayer, and they defended Vienna, turned back the threat, and really from that time on, again, that was like the last time that the Muslim Turks really threatened to take over Europe. And so they jumped back then to the time in the Revolutionary War in the United States. Another Pole who had come from Poland. He had gone to military school in France. He was an engineer, and he's the one who built the fortification. He was a good friend of George Washington and eventually John Thomas Jefferson, who would be the executor of his estate. So obviously he was close to him. And they talk about how we don't usually hear him in the history books anymore, but back in the day, he would have been a name that would have been quickly brought up. And of course, I have to look to see his name because I don't remember how to pronounce it because I'm one that doesn't know him. His name was Thaddeus Kosciuszko, okay? And he's the one who built the fortification at West Point. And then because he had come through a military school in France, he encouraged George Washington to create a military school for this new country, the United States. And so they chose West Point to be the starting point. So this man would be a forgotten individual, and it was his Polish heritage. He had kind of lost his Catholic identity, but he was still stood up with Christians, and this Christian faith was still a part of who he was. Then we jump ahead to, they mentioned Heinrich Stenkiewicz again, who I mentioned in the last video had written the trilogy on Fire and the Sword about the victory that the Poles had in defending Częstochowa in Poland back in the day. and that his influence would have been there as well. And then they jump to the individual here, which I talked about last time as well, St. John Paul II. And he would become, remember, that Archbishop of Krakow, and he would be a big part of leading the spiritual revolution that would lead to the fall of the oppression of Russia once and for all in Poland, hopefully, and this establishment of a free Poland that we see to this day. The fall of the Iron Curtain in the Soviet Union. So a lot of Polish heritage, again, to celebrate, but seeing that impact that the Polish, people and that spirit that they had defended back in the Battle of Vienna in 1683, and the ways that they've continued to be part of fighting the wars even in our own country for freedom, and a freedom-based that allows us to grow in virtue. So we thank God for that, and thank you for joining me. Have a great day, and God bless.